Today, we're going to break down a really complex and challenging condition, chronic pancreatitis. And we'll use these slides, which are drawn straight from medical research, to really unpack what it is, what causes it, and importantly, how it's managed. Okay, so to really understand this condition, you've got to start with its defining feature, pain. This isn't just, a temporary ache. As this patient's quote makes painfully clear, it's a continuous burning or gnawing feeling that can just flare up out of nowhere. Honestly, this relentless pain is the central battle for anyone living with the disease.
So, what is happening inside the body to cause all this pain? Well, chronic pancreatitis is a progressive disease. I want you to think of it like this vicious, relentless cycle. The pancreas gets inflamed, it tries to heal itself by creating scar tissue, that's a process called fibrosis, and this constant loop of flare-ups and scarring just slowly, piece by piece, destroys the organ's ability to do its job. So, to get the full picture, we're going to walk through this in four main parts. First, we'll look at how the disease actually damages the pancreas. Then, we'll get into the main causes, cover all the symptoms it can create, and finally, we'll talk about how you manage a chronic illness like this.
All right, let's dive right into our first section. How does this disease actually break down the pancreas, step by step? It's really a domino effect. As you can see in step 1, it all kicks off with inflammation. When these little ducts inside the pancreas get plugged up, that leads right into step 2, fibrosis, which is basically just scarring, as the tissue desperately tries to heal. But over time, and this is step 3, that scarring can actually harden and calcify. You can almost think of it like concrete setting. And the final result, step 4, is what's called pancreatic insufficiency. The organ just becomes so damaged, it simply can't function anymore. So, that's the what. But what about the why? What actually triggers this destructive process? Turns out, it's not just one thing. Let's dig into the 4 main types, or causes, of chronic pancreatitis. This table does a great job of breaking down the different pathways to the disease. The most common one, chronic calcifying, is usually linked to alcoholism, but you can see it's not the only cause. Chronic obstructive can be triggered by something as simple as a physical blockage, like a gallstone. Then you've got the autoimmune type, which is wild. That's where the body's own immune system gets confused and actually attacks the pancreas. And finally, there's an idiopathic or hereditary type, which is tied to specific gene mutations. Okay, so now we get the causes. Let's shift gears and look at the effects. What are the signs, the clues, the body gives that point to chronic pancreatitis? And what are the long-term consequences of all that damage we just talked about? Right, so beyond that intense pain we started with, the body sends out a lot of other signals that it's in trouble. Remember, the pancreas is absolutely crucial for digestion and controlling blood sugar. So when it starts to fail, you see major digestive issues like fatty stools, really significant weight loss, and even the classic symptoms of diabetes. Other telltale signs can be jaundice. That's when the skin turns yellow, or a buildup of fluid in the abdomen. This slide just perfectly illustrates the domino effect here. It's a cascade. First, the pancreas loses what's called its exocrine function. Basically, it stops making the enzymes you need to digest food. That directly leads to the body not being able to absorb fats and proteins, which causes the fatty stools and weight loss we see in steps 2, 3, and 4. And then, the final domino to fall. It loses its endocrine function. It can't regulate blood sugar anymore, and that results in diabetes. It's truly a chain reaction of failures. So with this devastating progression, the million-dollar question is, how on earth do you manage it? Since there's no cure, the entire focus has to shift to controlling symptoms, keeping up with nutrition, and trying to prevent those awful flare-ups. The absolute cornerstone of management is something called PERT, or pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy. The easiest way to think about it is giving the body a helping hand. Patients take these capsules that have the digestive enzymes their own pancreas just can't make anymore. It sounds simple, but this one step helps them actually digest their food, absorb nutrients, and it keeps many of the most severe symptoms in check. And just to give you an idea of the nutritional battle here, look at this number. Because the body is so bad at absorbing nutrients, a patient with chronic pancreatitis might need to eat 4,000 to 6,000 calories every single day just to not lose weight. I mean, think about that. That's 2 or even 3 times what the average person needs. And that brings us to diet, which is, you guessed it, absolutely critical. The whole game plan is a diet that's high in carbs and protein, but low in fat. So you're loading up on everything on the left. You also want to eat small, frequent meals so you don't overwhelm the system. And of course, as you see on the right, you have to completely avoid major triggers like alcohol, caffeine, and fatty foods. It's a total lifestyle change.
So at the end of the day, self-management really boils down to this: doing everything you can to prevent those painful flare-ups. It's an incredibly disciplined routine. We're talking about avoiding all triggers like alcohol and nicotine, sticking to that very specific diet we just saw, taking your enzymes with every single meal and snack, no exceptions, and making sure you get enough rest. It's really a full-time commitment to managing the disease.
And that leads us to a final, much bigger question. Chronic pancreatitis really shines a light on a challenge we see all across healthcare. When there's no cure, managing the condition becomes this lifelong burden. And it really makes you wonder, how can we, as a society, get better at shifting our focus from just reactively treating the fallout of chronic conditions to proactively preventing them from happening in the first place? It's definitely something to think about.